I keep looking over to the camera over there, which is not currently on. I should be looking to the webcam up here. Hello, lovely Plapernauts. Isn't it going to be a fun one here? What do we have up here? We got a good selection of songs. Yeah, nice cross-section here. So speaking of which, Eric, while I have you and everybody here, I need you to look for a song called Bulletproof by I think they're called the Wilkins Brothers. Anyway, the song's called Bulletproof. And, or Wilkinsons. But anyway, it's kind of a Red Hot Chili Peppers style song. And I recorded it on my old API. And it was my old API and in my old room. And I really like it. And I just chatted with the band online today. And they said we can use it as multi-tracks inside of the Academy. So yay! So let's film that and get it up for next Wednesday. Do we have plans for next Wednesday? What's next Wednesday?
Let's see.
We could mix it live on Wednesdays. How about that? Why don't we do that? Do you want to do that? All lovely Plapernauts do a mix live on Wednesdays. Do we have something for next Wednesday?
Next Wednesday is open.
Okay, we'll do a live mix of Bulletproof by the Wilkins. I think it's called the Wilkins Brothers. It's interesting. Honestly, I'm a little bit brain dead at the moment for some reason. The reason why I'm confused is because I think they're called Wilkinson, and I'm also friends with the Wilkins sisters. So I'm doing that thing where, you got brothers, sisters, Wilkinsons. Anyway, they're good lads. It's a great song. It's very Chili Peppers-ish. And it was recorded in a really good room. So I think you'll have a lot of fun with that. So we'll do a live mix next Wednesday on Inside a Produce Like a Pro Academy. You got that?
Got it.
He's got it. Okay. The song is called Bulletproof. It's probably up on Spotify. Maybe you could find it. All right. Who we got up first today? We have Craig Aspin, and Craig says, a beautiful Jonah Smith track. Yeah, Jonah's fantastic. For those of you that don't know, Jonah was on, believe it or not, America's Got Talent. He came in 4th, I think. So, and is an amazing singer. And for those of you that are new and don't know about this song, it was recorded live in one take. So live vocals, live piano, live bass, live drums. And the crazy thing is, it's actually the first take that we used. Yep, first take. I schnizzle you not. Okay, so let's go and check it out. I just realized, open this back up again. Sorry, Craig. I didn't read any of Craig's notes. Craig said, beautiful, Craig said, a beautiful Jonah Smith song with so much soul. It's an epic production recorded at Sunset Sound in sunny Los Angeles, California by Grammy nominated. But thank you, I appreciate it. Warren Hewitt and Multitrap supplied through Produce Like a Pro Academy, mixed by Craig Aspin at Sweet Discreet in the UK. Okay, let's check it out. Here we go. Oh, yeah, again. It looks like that first note might have got chopped. Maybe it was in the download, but anyway.
That would probably be my fault.
Oh, probably be your fault.
Yeah, most likely. Screen flow and grabbing it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I was lost, couldn't find my
Pretty fantastic. I love the drum sound. I love the snare. For those of you that haven't watched the video, maybe you can find it and put a link up. It's on YouTube. For those of you who haven't done it, we did, this is the one where we did 2 sets of microphones, yeah? So this is the Shure one where we did the cheap Shure microphones along with Sunset Sound's really expensive microphones. And a couple of things that are interesting is a couple of the Shure inexpensive ones sound phenomenal, particularly the low floors. Like if I was going to go and mix between the 2 sets of drum mics, I'd probably use that. They were pretty amazing. And I think, were beating out something like 251s or something, like something really expensive, some Neumann mics. They were just better in the position. And I believe they were like $99, these microphones. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I love the drum sound. So I don't know what combination of mics you use. Maybe you used all the expensive mics. Maybe you used a bit of each. But I really do love the drum sound. The snare is spectacular. I do hear that it's a combination of the overheads with a certain compression on it that giving that snare that beautiful pff, pff sound. Now, remember, I believe, without looking at the video, so this is my memory, that this is a really random, cheap, strange snare. He has, Blair Sinter, that is, has a combination of like a really huge collection of snares. And this one, I believe, was just like one of those cheaper ones. Not a bad snare, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't a Ludwig, it wasn't a Rogers, it wasn't a Gretsch. It was, or if it was a cheaper range. And we just called it the trashy snare, and it has something special about it. So why am I waffling on? Well, I'm waffling on because the compression on all of the drum mics is absolutely superb. It makes the snare sound really remarkable. The only thing I would say at the end, and this is just taste, is that possibly as the track gets louder, the bands start digging in harder. It gets a little washy on the compression. Come to the end here. So maybe that's a wrong way of describing it. But what's happening when he goes over to that ride cymbal and starts driving it on the ride, the snare starts to get lost, and it starts to get a little... So everything up until that point, I absolutely love on the drum sound. You just might have to rebalance for the end there. You might just have to get the close mic of the snare and just push it up, especially just a little. And you might even have to brighten the snare just a tiny bit there, just a little extra automation, just to make it cut, because it loses a bit of the energy there. Could be automation mainly. There's some times where it's perfect, and then other times it's covered a little bit by the vocal, and it's very, very slight. One of the things that we talk about, Craig, is, and everybody here, is like, you know, detail stuff when it gets to be what I call like a headphone mix. Headphone mix for me, if you're new, is like I've mixed the track, I'm sitting between the speakers, I'm pretty happy with it. You know, Eric does me a bounce, I put on a pair of headphones, and I start making notes, and I get into the detail stuff. The great thing about this mix is it's really good, and it's the detail stuff we're talking about. So automation there, just to help articulate. The snare drum could be great. It's also interesting that the cymbals, because of the compression, the ride doesn't have a it just has a just a sort of a wash. Personally, I would back off the compression there at the end and just let a little bit more of the dynamics come through and a little bit more of the hit of the cymbal. I think that would really, really help. We do definitely need air conditioning on in here. It is like 900 degrees in here. Whew! Oh, thank God. It's so hot in here. In about 10 minutes, you're going to see me like drooling with sweat. You really don't want to see that. Anyway, so Yeah, so back off the compression there, just at the end there. Let the cymbals breathe a little bit more so there's a bit more energy in there, not just a wash. Just a bit. The other thing is like the bass is on the border. It's like, I love it, but is it like 0.7 of a dB too loud? I don't know. Let's go back to the beginning.
I was lost, couldn't find my way.
Yeah, it's a tough one because I think what I'm saying is like it's definitely too loud there. It's probably 2 dB too loud there. But by the end,
Floating on the falling skies again. I never thought that I would be caught by love so helplessly again.
so the bass in general is a little too loud. I think what I would do personally, Craig, is just bring it all down, the whole thing 0.7 of a dB. And 0.7 of dB is going to be perfect on the outro choruses and possibly the second chorus as well. But then you're probably going to have to go and do an additional dB down in the first verse. So you've got, now it's down about 1.7, and then maybe half a dB down in the second verse. But just bring the overall thing down to 0.7. Now, why do I say 0.7? 0.7 is what mastering engineers over the years have told me is what is audible to most people. Bringing things down 0.5 of a dB, actually, you know, you do something down 0.5 and bring something up 0.5. Now there's a 1 dB difference between the relationship of two instruments, and you'll hear it quite dramatically. But when you're only turning something down, a 0.5 of a dB can rebalance a mix nicely, but it isn't usually that audible. So that's what I was told by Stephen Marcus and Bob Ludwig, Adam A, and was it Gavin Lurson? They're all like, yeah, that's what we consider, like for most people that aren't mastering engineers, like an audible, proper audible difference. So I usually lean towards that. So if you hear me say 0.7 in the Academy, that's why, because there's smarter people of me who've used that. Anyway, so I think once the bass comes down, that might help the relationship between the bass and the kick. Let's go and grab a C4 for a second. Those of you that are new will learn something here, and those of you who've been in forever will be like, oh, Warren's just doing this again. Why did I get the C1 gate? Yeah, let's gate it. Yeah, why not? 1, 4, 6. All right, let's go for the right one. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to solo the frequencies about 60 and below. And you can do this with an EQ. I just like using this. Okay, where I started, let's go back to that. Now, some of you may be on headphones, you may be on earbuds, or you might be on studio monitors that don't have a sub or at least some low end. So here's the offender here. So it's just a tiny, 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 tiny amount too much low end in the bass. Now, maybe by the time this comes down a dB, 1.7 dB in this first verse, that might not be an issue because the low end obviously is going to come down proportionally. So maybe that extra 1.7 isn't going to be a problem. The only thing I would sort of maybe encourage is not necessarily, cutting any lower, but just maybe just increasing the slope. You don't need to do this on a high pass, but, maybe if it's at 3, make it 6. Maybe if it's 6, make it 9 dB. You know what I mean? 9, that would be per octave. So, just increase your slope ever so slightly there and just let the low end on the kick drum breathe a little bit more. Let's have a listen to the low end on the kick. It's quite nice, the low end on the kick. I'm hearing it. Let's bypass this. Yeah, I think with the gain, the volume reduction on the bass, and maybe after you've brought it down, maybe tightening your high passing ever so slightly, I think the low end on that kick drum might come through really beautifully because it feels like it's there. It's really, really close. Like I said, these are minor things, but these are like take it over the edge. So readdressing the drum sound in the last section of the song where it gets a little bit too washy. Everything up until there is superb. And maybe, so just backing off overhead compression, or if it's the bus getting a little bit compressed there, just raise the threshold just in that section so there's more direct signal going through and less compression being applied. You can do that there just at the end. And then just automating the snare here and there ever so lightly so it just breathes a little bit. Now bring the bass down 0.7 over the whole track and then go to the verses and maybe, especially the first verse, bring it down an additional dB. Then give it a listen. Is the kick drum now just coming in underneath like you want it to? Just some big blooming low end? If it isn't, just slightly adjust your high passing ever so slightly on the bass, just a tiny bit. And then in the last resort, even after all of that, maybe add a tiny bit more subbiness. So in the area between 60 and like 40, well, my sub boost is at 36. So somewhere between 60 and say 30. And why am I pinpointing that? Because you don't want to smother the bass. So what you can do is maybe put a dB boost at 60 hertz. So you do this dB boost at 60 hertz, but which will automatically pull up, 50, 40, 30 nicely on that bell, but making sure not to increase too much 80 to 100 in there. Because if you increase too much 80 to 100, you're going to smother the tone of the bass. And I do like the tone of your bass. It's beautiful, it's low-endy and fat. I do recall that, to best of my knowledge, that John Button obviously, plays with The Who, with Shakira, but currently with The Who and a bunch of other guys who's playing bass on this, other people who's playing bass on this. I believe he was playing flat wounds, which is why it's super, super fat with the pH. Yeah, Paul's saying you could automate a gradual increase on the mouse to output for limiter. Yeah, I mean, maybe. It could be gradual. I mean, you're in the right ballpark. Yeah, definitely kind of raise that as you go. All right, next up is Alex Reed. And Alex's version of Let Me Entertain You. Alex says, hello, I love the performance and had so much fun mixing this track. I tried to give it a modern approach so I didn't base my mixing on the original song. Very smart. Yeah, we were the same way. The only thing I matched in the mix was the guitar tone. Because the guitar tone that Jamie did was dark, but it was too dark. It didn't have the brightness and the bite that Brian has. So I did have to put quite a lot of high-end boost on that to mix it. But other than that, I agree. My drums were more modern than the original. And I mean, for that, you're in the academy here, so I can tell you. So Jamie sent it to Brian, and he was really, really complimentary about the song. He loved the production. He loved the production. He was really complimentary about how it was recorded and loved Jamie's guitar playing and everything. So nice, isn't it, to have one of your heroes and, one of my heroes say that. Anyway, moving back, says, I used some techniques learned from YouTube and so on. Some by Andrew Shep's rear bus. I even made myself a CLL Epic style template with 4 reverbs and 4 delays on FL, just to experiment a bit. Hope you enjoy it. Great. Excited to hear.
Let's go. Come on. Hey, it's a sellout. Yeah. Let me welcome you, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to say hello. Are you ready for some entertainment? Are you ready for a show? Gonna rock, gonna roll ya, get you dancing in the house. Jazz you, razzle, but you with a little bit of style. So come on, let me entertain I'll krill and avail you, to thrill you, I'll use any device. We'll give you crazy performance. We'll give you grounds for divorce. We'll give you pièce de resistance and a tour de force. Of course! We found the right location, got a lot of pretty lights, the sound and amplification. Listen, yeah, if you need a fix, if you want to hide, Stickles will see to that. With Electra and EMI, we'll show you where it's at. So come on, let me entertain you. Let me entertain you. Let me entertain you. Let me entertain you.
That's a pretty fantastic mix, isn't it? That is a really, really good mix. I really enjoyed it. I think the stuff I have is pretty negligible. I think, like, if I had this mix to work with now, I would be happy with this mix. And these are the things I would do. The only things I would do to sort of change this up. Okay, number one, when the snare fills come in, especially that super fast one, it feels like it's predominantly the sample. Now, it might not be predominantly a sample. I've had people tell me I'm using a sample when I didn't. And I've heard people tell me they can't believe how natural the drum sounds are when they're not natural. So we know the way that works. So it might not be that you're predominantly using the sample. However, it does sound a little machine gun-like on that. So if you're using samples or whatever the blend you're using, because I probably I would have supplied you with everything I used, which includes samples. Now, just randomize them. Just take different samples, turn them up, turn them down, sometimes try muting, things that give a left and right a different sound. So I would definitely go back in on that and do that. Look, I know in modern rock, 99.9% of it, too much of it, I should say. I'm not going to pretend I know the percentage. Too much of it is all drum samples. We know that. We even know with modern rock bands that now the drummer goes in and plays the parts and then they edit it, create MIDI, and then trigger sounds. We've heard all these stories of massive, massive modern rock bands not even recording drums to a high level anymore. We know this. And what tends to happen is, like, people get used to that sound. But I think for this song, and Alex, don't get me wrong, I know that you're modernizing it, but I think for this song, there's a halfway house between, the absolutely perfect drum sound and the just enough of a randomness. Now, don't take it as a criticism. It's just a critique, because this is a really good mix. Absolutely love it. Let's go back to the top. Have a listen to this.
Let's go. Come on. Hey, it's a
now, that one's not so bad because it only stays on the snare for a second and goes to the toms. The only thing I think I would do there would be to increase the drama. So there needs to be a little bit more drama. There needs to be a little bit more like, oh my God, everything came in there. So.
Hey, it's a
That. So if I just cheat a minute and just gain that up, have a listen to this. This is cheating. This is not what I.
Yeah.
It just needs that leap. It needs like just a step up there, some extra drama. So that's automation. You just need to just be a little bit, just go in there and just automate everything down a little bit. And then when that comes in, just an extra dB of lift on everything, like, whoa, second guitar comes in, it's in stereo, it's amazing. Absolutely love it. So minor stuff there. The other minor thing as well was the solo. I think I want to hear it down the center. It was interesting to hear it on the right-hand side, and I did enjoy it, but I think it would be much better down the center. It's such a good solo. I mean, it's Jamie playing note for note Brian's solo. I mean, we're not going to go away from it because it's such an incredible track.
Let me entertain you. Let me We found the right note. Crazy performance. We'll give you grounds for divorce.
And then the other thing with the automation is the pianos. Just push those. You know, we'll give you that performance. Just automate those up. Your relationship between your bass and your drums is fantastic. Guitars need some more drama. And it's just little minor, like, volume rides and stuff.
Wanna see some action? You get nothing but the best. The yesterday of attraction. We got the pleasure chairs. Chicago down to New Orleans. We got you on the line. If you dig the New York scene, we'll have a son of a mission for time. So come on, let me entertain. Let me entertain. Let me entertain you through the night. Hey, where's my backstage pass?
The vocal sounds great as well. Really love the vocal sound. All your tonal and sonic ideas are absolutely fantastic, Alex. It's all about automation for me. You know, one of the things about, this period of rock was parts that were written to sort of like work together, you know, and they did really naive kind of, but really good automation stuff. They'd all be at the board pre-SSL. Now, this is, 1978 jazz? I don't believe this was an SSL. I think this was probably still, I mean, they made a lot of records, obviously, on the Kodak, you know, like I have with the G320s at Rockfield. But they mixed a lot on, I think they mixed Bohemian Rhapsody on MCI, didn't they? I'm trying to remember now. But anyway, obviously, they also worked a lot on an 8048 that they owned themselves. So a lot of Neve stuff. So no automation on any of that. I still think in 78, there was the first SSLs were coming out, but I think they did this in Montreux, didn't they? I think they did this in Montreux. And I'm sure it was probably, I like that. And sure it was maybe, probably. It most likely, sure, might be, probably, could have been a Neve, and they would have just been on faders going, here comes the piano, pull it down. They would have had markers, everybody would have had their part. And I think that's just the only thing you need. I think just take it over the edge is just to get in there, get that snare drum feel a bit more natural, push up the guitars for the excitement, you know, when it comes in, which might mean literally just turning the intro down so the impact is bigger. And then just finding those moments, getting the solo in the center. It's just me, but I think it would be great. But either way, just drama, pushing things, automation. Otherwise, sonically, really good. Compression, EQ is very smart, very contained, very musical, and the vocal in particular sounds really, really good. I'm sure if Mark heard that, he'd be very impressed. We're going to be working with Mark next month in Nashville. All right, next up is Dan Monroe. And Dan says, this version is my first submission for feedback. Thank you for the Platt family for assisting me with some great feedback on this mix in the Facebook group. I listened and assimilated to your comments. I'm still finding my translation ballast with small room challenges, I understand, and getting the right gear to replace my very old setup. All of that I understand as well. Plus, relearning skills and continuing my path in this epic life journey in music. That is fantastic, Dan. Love to hear that. I'm hoping I am starting to understand this space, and I'm now starting to translate properly, as I think this is a key for me learning, being able to hear correctly. Looking forward to your comments. Please feel free to say what you like. I have thick skin, and I'm here to learn. Oh yeah, well we keep it positive. There's no reason to be negative. It's all about learning together here. You'll get the right information. You just won't get it with an F-bomb. Here we go.
The two of them left before the dawn on a Sunday morning to try to make it in time to see the sun rise over the lake. He said, how much do I give and what do I take? As he took him by the hand, some things we'll never understand. The two of them sat at the chapel on a Sunday morning to hear the preacher man say it's okay to take these things slow. No matter where you go, I want you to know this sin don't belong to you now. There ain't nothing that you need to do. So won't you come down to the lakeside? Won't you come down by the shady shore? Take the load up off your shoulder. You don't need to carry that no more. And lay it down by the lakeside, let it drown by the shady shore. 'Cause we're traveling light. Yeah, we're traveling light. Two of them stood holding hands at the edge of the water, with a wondering smile saying, baby, it's about damn time. He took her in his arms, she looked into his eyes. Can you leave it all behind now? Oh yes, I've made up my mind. Take me down to the lakeside, take me down by the shady shore. Take the load up off my shoulder. I don't wanna carry that no more. Lay it down by the lakeside, let it drown by the shady shore. 'Cause we're traveling light. Yeah, we're traveling light. Down by the water, down by the water, down by the water. Won't you lay your burdens down by the water, down by the water, down by the water. Yeah. Take me on, your shoulder now, lay it all down. Take me on, oh yeah, oh see I will lay it down. Won't you come down to the lakeside? Won't you come down by the shady shore? Take the load up off your shoulder. You don't need to carry that no more. Lay it down by the lakeside, let it drown by the shady shore. We're traveling light. Yeah, we're traveling light. We're traveling light now. Yeah, we're traveling light.
I love this song. I love that everybody's having a go at it. It's really fantastic. Between this and obviously the first track, just great singers. What I love about a lot of these, not this one obviously because it's overdubbed, but a lot of these tracks are like performed by people live in a room. The one that Daryl recorded for us, Del Thorpe recorded for us, is live in a room with Steve singing. It's pretty amazing on piano. Okay, I love this. It's really, really great. It's definitely, I hear the compression in a good way, you know. Let's go to this section here. You'll see what I mean.
He took her in his arms, she looked into his eyes. Can you leave it all behind now? Oh yes, I've made up my mind. Take me down to the lakeside.
So for me, a couple of things. I think the bass needs a more defined sound. It's very full and it's a cool sound in some ways, but I'm not hearing the articulation of the notes. And that area always comes from like mid-range. We talk about it a lot, like 750s are popular, frequency 850, 1K, 1.5, all give it nose, kind of down, down. And the nose can really help point it through. Then, of course, a little bit of 3K with a wide kind of bell gives you a little bit of bite, and you can hear the fingers on there or the pick, depending on how it's played. You don't need a great deal above 3.5K on a bass. As long as you've got that 3K, it's going to give you the bite. I have no problem putting a bit of fur, a bit of distortion, a bit of saturation on the bass that might sound a little much soloed, but in the track, it completely disappears, but makes it feel just a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more like, hey, I'm a bass. So I think for me, I think you need to define the bass sound a little bit. If we go back to this section again, you'll hear what I mean. Like, that's great. That little note, that little part there.
He took her in his arms, she looked into his eyes. Can you leave it all behind now?
But you hear that I can hear a double stop, dum dum, going on, but I just know it's there, and I don't hear the articulation of it. And what I'm hearing is a bit of a build-up in the lows. So there's a thickness there, which in some ways is nice from a, people ask me about this all the time, a glue perspective about the tracks joining themselves together. But I do feel like I want some more separation there. I want to hear the kick coming underneath. I want to hear the bass in its own place. And if you can get those two things to work well together, plus the low end of the piano getting out of the way of those instruments as well, out of the way of the kick drum, out of the way of the bass guitar, there'll be a little bit more clarity there. And so when this next section comes in, see, it's too linear, isn't it? I mean, again, all of the choices are really nice. I'm hearing a little bit of sort of, maybe you could misconstrue. I mean, I hate using this word, but to excessive compression going on. But I think it's more about like automating. To me, that take me down to the river. I want that take me down. I want it to be like an anthemic like lift, at least like a dB up of like, whoa, what happened there? And sometimes that's cheating. Sometimes that's turning everything down a dB. So that when the chorus comes in, so sometimes you just bring things down just a little bit so the impact is greater. I think once you clean up the low end and you get the kick underneath, the bass a bit more of a mid-range, so it can be defined without being louder. One of the things that took me years to really get a handle on was mixing bass, and because of that, I would keep turning the bass up to hear it. And the problem with turning the bass up to hear it is if it's really fat with loads of low end, I'm just smothering my mix with too much low end. What I should have been doing and what I do now is I can't hear the bass. I need more definition on it rather than turning it up. You know what I mean? I hear the double stop earlier on the low end. I want to hear the double stop with the mids, so I hear the articulation. The low end is not what should be carrying it there. So automation, I think, is what's going to make this mix phenomenal. Yeah, Kat's saying all about automation today. Yeah, I mean, the mixing level of these songs is absolutely phenomenal. And it is interesting that when you are dealing with people that have good choices in compression and EQ, a lot of the time it is going to be the automation that's going to take it over the edge. Well, speaking of Kat, you're up next. Great work, Dan, though. Yeah, get into the automation. Make those transitions bigger. Clean up the low end on the bass. Allow the kick drum to breathe a little bit more by making sure it's not just all about the bass that's covering it down there. And, yeah, transitions, automation, huge, huge part of this. All right, Kat is up next. Hey, Kat. I see you. She said, yikes. Yikes. Kat says, fun song to work with such dense choruses towards the end. I also found it challenging to keep her voice powerful and not harsh. I got some great feedback and encouragement in the chat, so thanks to everyone who gave their 2 cents. Wonderful.
There you are, you held my door. No one's ever been able to stop me in my tracks before. You're a beast, a wild animal, and I'm the lion that you tame. Now under your control, you're like the ghost that follows me wherever I go. You're the music burning down deep in my soul. You move me, then you leave. Then we're back to the start. Now let's split apart. The roads are shifting, our worlds apart. We've been here before through these sliding doors. Disturb our ways, can't escape our fate. We think it's a dream, but we're wide awake. We've been here before through these sliding doors. And there you are. How could we be so blind, thinking it's just black and white? We walk into a fire just to feel alive. We love the way it burns, but we hate the way it hurts. We hate the way it hurts. You're like the ghost that follows me wherever I go. You're the music burning deep down in my soul. You move me, then you leave me. Then we're back to the start. Now let's split apart. The roads are shifting, our worlds apart. We've been here before through these sliding doors. Disturb our ways, can't escape our fate. We think it's a dream, but we're wide awake. We've been here before through these sliding doors. Walking on wire, but our feet are getting tired. Keep trying to take it higher, but we always fall down. Then we're back to the start. Now let's split apart. The roads are shifting, our worlds apart. We've been here before through these sliding doors. Disturb our ways, can't escape our fate. We think it's a dream, but we're wide awake. We've been here before through these sliding doors. And there you
Kat, that's wonderful, wonderful work. Wonderful, wonderful work. The reason why I put a little note to say listen was because of this.
wire, but our feet are getting tired. Keep trying to take it higher, but we always fall down. We've been here before through these sliding doors. Walking on wire.
So good. See, we talk about automation and stuff. Look at the way Kat pushed those strings there It was here. Here we go. Listen to this. Just a beautiful moment. Now, Kat, are you using the revised bass idea? It sounds like you are, because you've got the dum, 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 rather than the because that was one of the things that when Mark Endert mixed this song for Chloe, when Chloe sang it, because this is the song I wrote like 5 years ago for another artist, and it's been covered by tons of people. But when Chloe did it, Mark Endert mixed it, who's obviously, Mark Endert. And he said the bass line isn't working in the chorus. So I like what Kat's done here. It's got a thump. Kat says she used the cello rather than the Moog. That makes sense. Or the Moog. Moog and Moog both are correct for those of you that... It's interesting because when Moog was interviewed, he said, my whole family says Moog. I decided I wanted to go with Moog. Really great work. So this is a good example, so Kat was pointing out automation in the first three. Well, automation has definitely taken her mix over the edge here. Also some really wonderful, and obvious, but in a good way, transitional sections. I mean, here going into this chorus is phenomenal. Listen to this. I think it's 95% of the way there to being an absolutely perfect mix. So I love the thump that you're using in a doom, doom, doom for the chorus. Hats off to you. You nailed that. It's really, really good. Your vocal tone is fantastic. Was it a little unusual for me to hear it so dry the whole song? Yeah, it was. I was a little taken aback. I do think it being really dry in the first verse is actually a bit of a shock, but also a pleasant shock. I do think the vocal in the chorus could have a bit more effect on it, just a little bit, tiny bit more. I feel like the toms are great that you've created with the thump, dump, dump, dump. You've created enough space in the low end for the toms to bloom. So if you, with that in mind, have a listen. You'll see how the toms have a lot of low end on them. Now, the question is, I like it. I like the low end on it. You could argue it's on the verge between everything that's providing low end, which there's so much stuff providing low end. This whole song is about trying to figure out how to get the low end to work. And the only way it works is with that shorter bass line, that shorter dum, dum, dum. And that's, for anybody who hasn't mixed it yet, that's highly what I recommend. So I feel like the toms could have a tiny bit more air. I love the verb I am hearing. Maybe a little bit more. I don't know. I want more of what you're doing. If we have a listen now, you'll hear there's a bit of air around the toms. There's a little bite. Just imagine a bit more of it. It's really subtle. What I'm talking about there, Kat, is probably like an extra dB on the verb. Probably just that, and probably just a little bit of 3K, just a tiny bit, like an extra dB. It's a really good mix, and again shows off wonderful, wonderful use of automation. Particularly love this little outro here before we forget. That could go on for another second or two for me. Just making sure Eric hadn't shortened it. Yeah, I loved it. That was nice just hearing that reverb swell. This to me is, like I say, a 95% mix. I would have this up on the console and I'd be going in doing tiny experimental sculptures on the low end and seeing if I can get like 1 or 2% more definition between things. You know, just a little bit more, and then maybe just a little bit more atmosphere. Thank you for my cup of tea around the toms, maybe just a little bit more bite on them, you know, and then just a tiny bit more reverb on the vocals or more effects in general in the choruses, just a bit. And then the second verse, maybe not quite so dry, just somewhere in between the dry first verse and the wetter first chorus, somewhere in the middle. I mean, you are 95% of the way here. It's a really good mix. Again, this has been another mix that I would be very happy to just have up on the console and start tweaking from. None of these mixes have been teardowns, and a couple of them have been very close to how I would have done them. And this is very close to how I'd be proud of this mix. It wouldn't be a teardown. I wouldn't be going, I've got to rechange the sounds. None of that. It would be a case of like tweaking and defining. Great work, Kat. I really appreciate it. Are you still just down the street, Kat? Aren't you in Studio City? I know you're close. Are you still close? Great work. And wonderful automation on the strings to add drama to the song. Really impressive. All right, Michael Wolff is up next. We might have Eric do a joke of the day in a minute, so I'm giving him a warning. Joke of the week. Oh, did you all watch my friend or our friend Ruth's video this week? Do you want to put up a link? Yeah. It's like a 1 hour video, or a little bit longer, like an hour and 20 minutes. Anyway, she writes and records a song from scratch. What DAW is she in?
I think it's Logic.
She's in Logic. She's an amazing trumpet player, a really hugely talented. She also happens to be Brent Fisher's like right-hand person. Like whenever we do those string dates with Brent, she's there with the charts. I mean, ridiculous. Ruth is stupidly talented, runs circles around pretty much anybody I know. And so it's a really good video because her setup is super modest. She has a pair of speakers, a little tiny interface. In fact, she doesn't even own it. It's borrowed. So I'm getting Audient to do a deal for her. She just needs a 2-input interface. Simple as that. Very modest setup, but it's great to get inside of the head of somebody and watch their creative flow. Just really, really fantastic. So if you haven't watched it, go watch it. And of course, you can download the multi-tracks. You can add your own production elements. She didn't do any, and we didn't do any tuning on her vocal. It's all a raw. The whole thing is raw. It's very creative. It's great to see inside the creative process of somebody that talented. And also, honestly, one of my favorite human beings. You'll love Ruth. She's a wonderful person. So, so check it out. And we have more of those coming. A lot more of those coming. And next Wednesday, we'll do the live mix and the download of the...
Wilkinsons.
We've got to remember their name because they're the Wilkins brothers, Landon and Riley. I just can't remember. I think they're Wilkinson anyway, but the track is called Bulletproof. All right, so next up, Michael Wolff says, I couldn't pass on mixing this good old Aussie cover. Wonderful. The 2-mic drum recording proved to be a challenge. Heck yeah! But I decided to make it work without samples no matter what, and this is the result. Wonderful. Here it is. Some Black Sabbath. Wow, that's fantastic. I really, really like it. I'm on the fence because with the vocal level, because the vocal is in the track like a good rock track should be. If you listen to Rolling Stones at their peak, it was like go into a go or I can't get. It wasn't like I can't. You know what I mean? I don't want to shout in everybody's heads, but it wasn't like this. It wasn't like huge pop vocal and then little band. So there's something to be said for Michael's choices here to have the vocal be a little bit more in the track and make it more about the bass and kick drum groove with obviously the guitar, which is really what this is. It's just that do-do-do-do-do-do-do, because it's just kick, snare. It's that groove the whole time. We had one of the lads that works for us here, who'll remain nameless, Connor, and and I'm sorry, Connor, if you're watching this, and he said, "Oh, I can play drums." So I was like, "Hey, you want to play on this track? We won't get Blair, and we'll have you play." And then he played it. He's like, "No, it's not like death metal where you've got like kind of all that stuff going on, but it's still a workout. I mean, that's a workout for your foot, for your right foot or left, depending on whether you're left or right-handed. But it's a workout, and to play it like Blair did is pretty spectacular. I didn't quantize him at all, as you can probably tell, but I did, tighten up my odd guitar fluff or something like that. But that's the groove. The guitars and the bass are matching the groove. So I think, Michael, you showed it off really well. Let's have a quick listen. And I agree. Somebody said that Michael got the bass sounding pretty authentic. I agree.
Finished with my woman 'cause she couldn't help me with my mind. People think I'm insane because I am frowning all the time. All day long I think of things, but nothing seems to satisfy. Think I'll lose my mind if I don't find something to pacify. Can you help me occupy my brain? Oh yeah. I need someone to show me the things in life that I can't find. I can't see the things that make true happiness. I must be blind.
I'm enjoying it. You can tell. Just listen to a minute and a half of it. I think it's fantastic. So those of you, if you're new, we take multi-tracks that we put up ourselves privately inside the Academy, but we also take the multi-tracks that you hear on YouTube, and people mix those as well. Obviously, next Wednesday, we're going to mix a song, which is not going to be on YouTube. It's just exclusively for the Academy. Sometimes we do both. We showcase it live so people can see us mixing it. But either way, we always allow those, always use those multi-tracks here in the Academy as well, no matter where we get them from. They're always, obviously, when I say where we get them from, how we use them, I should say. And I think Michael sort of nailed this. So, Michael, I think my only... And for those of you new that don't understand that this was only 2 mics on the drum kit, the way that Michael has done this is he's brought out the drums in the best possible way. Is it the best drum sound ever? No, but it's 2 mics on a drum kit set. And it's very, very in keeping with the original track. You've probably heard me talk about this before, but, Bill Ward, as Blair said, is probably the most underrated drummer that ever lived. He should be considered right up there with John Bonham, and I'm a huge John Bonham fan. Roger Taylor, another incredibly underrated drummer. only because Roger was in a band of 4 of the best musicians in the entire world writing incredible songs. Not that I'm biased, Queen. But why I'm saying this is Bill was in a situation where Black Sabbath albums weren't always recorded that well. Shh, don't tell anybody. They just weren't. I mean, the first album's a masterpiece of clarity and simplicity. One guitar almost the entire time, bass and drums with Ozzy's vocal. Sounds wonderful. But some of the later stuff before Ronnie James Dio, mid-70s stuff, isn't that well recorded. It got better, unfortunately, after Ozzy quit, because they got Ronnie James Dio in, and they started using some really top-notch people. So I feel like Bill Ward as a drummer is not given his due. All of this reflects back to Michael, I think, has done something pretty authentic. It sounds Black Sabbath-ish to me, which is great for me because I'm a huge fan. Michael, my only critique would be smother my vocals more in effects. And I don't mean that because I don't want to hear my vocals. It could be a good reason, but it's not that. I just feel like it'd be more Ozzy-ish. But I agree with the early commentator. The bass sound is fantastic. Let's see, just for Schnitz and Schniggles, let's see if there's a little bit more 60 that could be got in the mix for the low end of the kick. So we'll just go and grab, a generic EQ. And my generic EQs are always the Waves Renaissance, just because I've been using them forever. I think you can probably, the bass has got a lot of 60 down there. You could probably ever so slightly high pass it a tiny bit more aggressively, just a tiny bit, and then just add on the drums, because there's only 2 mics, on the low end mic, on the one that's predominantly the kick, just give us a little bit more of a 60 in that area. Basically 60 to 40, because you don't want to bring up any more 80 in there because you're going to smother the bass. That's the only thing I would say, except for put more effects on the vocals, so it's a little bit more Ozzy. It's not because I'm afraid of my own vocals, although that, could be a thing. Could be a thing. All right, I'm going to take a 2-minute break, and we're going to put you over to the rather wonderful, the man, the myth, the legend, the joke teller extraordinaire, the Eric Von Gonzalez. Eric Von Gonzalez.
Yay!
Comedian. I mean, woo! We need walk-on music for you.
No. How is everyone doing? Yeah. How's it going? Let me check for a joke. I know I have a few. If I can find it. There's that. Scroll all the way down. Where is it? Okay. How do audiophiles say hi to each other? How do audiophiles say hi to each other? Time in 2 minutes. I would be really surprised if Warren actually shows back up in 2 minutes, like on the dot. Kenneth, you got it. They just wave. Nice. He's a joker. He's a smoker. He's a midnight toker. Nice, Chris. This is why I'm here. No. Audiophile jokes. Let's see. I did the one with the snake. If anyone missed that, that was what is the musical part of the snake? It's scales. Badoomps. Don't give Eric any flack for that joke. Nice. And I love how while Feedback Friday is going on, you guys are just kind of like throwing out jokes here and there throughout. I see them. Well, I wish I had something else to say besides the joke. Oh, wait. Yeah. Wait, I already told you guys the snake one. I answered, actually. I gave you guys the answer. Someday, Tom. One of these days. I don't know when, but... Well... Maybe not. I don't know. The way it's gone for me for the past how many years of telling jokes, I don't think I've gone any progress on my joke telling. Dating update? Still no update. Just cruising. Yes, half a show is better than none. That is for sure. Welcome to the intermission section. And I think we got it right in the middle. Right spot in the middle of all the mixes. We have 5 mixes left. When am I taking over the business? Tomorrow, guys. Get ready. Student being discreet. Oh, the new car. Saving up. Saving up for the new car. Which saving is a lot harder than it sounds. Or some people make it sound easy. It's kind of hard. I have to take away all the good stuff that I like to buy for myself, like all the good foods and the fun times and the going out and eating more food and the late night food that I order. I have to get rid of a lot of food. Like right now I have Pop-Tarts in the kitchen. So when Warren orders and gets food, which we need to go get our food order soon, I go and I eat some Pop-Tarts. This week's dad joke was how do audiophiles say hi to each other? Yes, the Camaro will be mine soon. I see them driving around, and I just look and I just like analyze, and I'm like, oh, is it really what I want? Because it looks great, and I just, Pop-Tarts and ramen. Yes, that's for sure. Yeah, being a responsible adult sucks. I want to go back. I still live with my parents, so I don't pay rent. So, I still have space to save and not pay rent. But yeah, can't live with them forever. Gotta move out sometime. Although I'm trying to work out a deal where I can just stay and hopefully they don't notice that I'm getting older and still there. Oh, was Bumblebee a Camaro? I don't remember. I don't know what color. I mean, I've always been because my car right now is blue. I've always been into like race cars they look nice and not nice in like a luxurious way, but just kind of like they look I don't even know, something that's on Fast and the Furious. Which those movies have become pretty I don't know what you would call them. Those movies are a little crazy now. They've been crazy, but I've always been into if not a blue car, then a black car. But then I noticed that a lot of black cars that have detail on the body, the body kit, when they have like all those curves and edges and all that stuff. If you have a black car, you can't really see all those curves and edges that make it look cool. And I want that to be seen because that's what I like. I want to look at my car and be like, oh, cool, look at all those cool edges and curves. So I might get a white one. But then Kasha, Warren's wife, told me that she doesn't see me driving a white car because, like, that's an older person. I'm young. I'm supposed to have, like, black and something like blue, red. But we'll see. The white ones look really clean and nice. Your brother is 64 and never moved out. That's awesome. I'm on board with that. I will totally, I would have no complaints. Well, a lot of people around me would probably complain. And I probably will never get a girlfriend. But I'll still be living at home. White car, black wheels, yes. I actually want a black hood and a little black spoiler or wing. I'm one of those guys. Black hood, the wing, side skirts. Yes, good point, Paul. Do not want to speed and go out like Paul Walker, which is very unfortunate. Oh, so Bumblebee was a yellow Camaro. I gotta look back at I haven't seen Transformers in a while. But now I kind of see it again. Huh. I see it in my head. The pictures. The mental pictures. Man, Mr. B, I don't know. I think I'm in this room way too much. That when I see a girl in real life, now I don't know what to say. I don't know how to communicate. I don't know how to English, how to American speak. You see? It's just all falling apart while I'm talking to you guys right now. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, the Fast and the Furious movies have just... If no one's seen them, and you're not into cars that go fast, don't watch any of them. Because the first one is the decent one where cars just normally go fast and do normal stuff. And it is a little ridiculous and crazy with the street racing and all that stuff. But, man, they are, like, jumping off cliffs now and strapping rockets to their cars. And, like, it's just like, what is this? This is not real life. This doesn't happen. The new 2 minutes. Don't tell her any jokes and you're with the chance. A lot of my dating apps, one of my funny things is I tell dad jokes and I'm not a daddy. That way it's like, I tell dad jokes, I don't have kids. Maybe I should take that down. Just walk around with your guitar. That used to do it. That used to be fun. Oh yeah, the first Fast and the Furious was not real either. It's like the first Fast and the Furious, if that wasn't real, and every point after that just kept going like further and further away from reality. It's like on a scale of 1 to 100 of craziness, they've surpassed 100 a long time ago, and they're still trying to go and reach the moon with that stuff. The Roadrunner stuff equals Fast and Furious. Yes, that's actually that's well put. I miss that stuff. I miss the old cartoons, all the Looney Tunes stuff. Man, those are some good shows. And occasionally they'll have it on TV, like they're running their marathons, and like I don't like look for the Looney Tunes stuff. But if it just so happens to be on, then I'm just kind of stuck watching it. And then before I know it, I'm like watching episodes of it. I'm like, oh, this stuff is so good. I miss it. That, like Tom and Jerry. I never was into the old Mickey Mouse stuff. I was all Looney Tunes. Yeah. The proper funny stuff. Yeah, Tokyo Drift. That was like Fast and the Furious 3. That was good with the drifting stuff. And then it made me attempt drifting, which was a very bad idea. And then I never attempted it again. That's the bad part. Is kids want to go fast and they try to go fast and bad things happen. And luckily for me, I got away with it and nothing bad happened. For other people, yeah, bad things can happen. Use your kids as an excuse to watch cartoons. I never want to stop watching cartoons. I still love cartoons. There's nothing wrong with watching cartoons and being older. Not at all. An original Tom and Jerry cell hanging in your bedroom. I feel like that stuff will be like, you'll be able to, not that you would sell it off, but at some point you'd probably be able to sell that stuff for a lot. Acme plugins. Every time I hear Acme, that's what I think of. That's all, folks. How does the taco say grace? Let us pray. I like that. Yeah, drifting in and out of conversation. That's the only good drifting. Well, I mean, I can't say good drifting, but that's the only drifting that goes on and increases as, we get older. I've noticed that for me. My attention span has just gotten kind of wonky and yeah, don't think that's good. I try to pay attention. Or at least I try to make it look like I'm paying attention in front of Warren. Yeah, I love anime. I totally watch anime. First anime I saw was Dragon Ball Z. And I still go back to that show every now and then just to rewatch it. Yeah, and no, 2 minutes has turned into a full-on intermission like sports. When it's like 20-minute, 30-minute break. Here we go, like that. How many soundmen does it take to screw in a light bulb? None. Soundmen don't do lights. What BPM? Well, yeah, I know. Or it was probably the wrong sample rate, so now everything's just like twice as long. Although now we're probably at the wrong, like triple, quadruple time. Yeah, anime is actually, Death Note is awesome. Love it. Anime has definitely gotten bigger and bigger, I think. Eric's TED Talk. But I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just filling in time. And thank you for helping me make conversation. Otherwise, I wouldn't know what to talk about. Yeah, I still have to figure out what artist. If it's the Wilkinsons, I got to figure that out. But we know that the song is called Bulletproof. So we have a little disc catalog in here that I just type in Bulletproof and it'll scan through all our hard drives and hopefully find it. Just tripped into a portal to another dimension. Agreed, Donald. Yeah. Dragon Ball Z, first season was really good. It started off really, really good. I mean, like, I love Dragon Ball Z all the way through. But then, when it gets to Dragon Ball GT and all that stuff, and now it's like Super Saiyan God and crazy, that's just nonsense. The Godzilla stuff. I never really saw the old Kung Fu movies. I think the only one I saw was the one with Bruce Lee, which if you're going to see a Kung Fu one, right, it's got to be the one with Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris. What was that? Chuck Norris was a bad guy. And that was the first. Was that the first time Chuck Norris was in a film? I don't remember.
I gave you 10 minutes, so I mean, there must have
Oh,
been some
man.
really good jokes in that period.
Yeah, we talked about a lot of stuff. Oh, and the joke. Yeah,
And a joke.
and the joke. Yeah. But good talk, guys. Good talk.
And a joke. What was the joke?
How do audiophiles say hi to each other?
How to what?
Audiophiles say hi to each other.
Hi-fi.
Oh, that's actually pretty good. They just wave.
They just wave. Oh, I think my answer was funnier. Hi-fi. Hi-fi.
Actually,
Okay.
that's worse.
Okay. All right. I missed the best, said Christoph. He said I missed it. Why was the interface a good nightclub bouncer? Because it was 2 in, 2 out. Oh. Chetty's the new joke king. What was Chetty's joke? How do you make a tissue dance? You put a little boogie in it. See, it doesn't work in English because we say bogey.
A bogey.
Yeah, we say bogey. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's a bogey, not a boogie. So I was like, huh? So boogie and bogey are 2 different words to us. It's an American joke. Enter the Dragon. But it's a good joke.
Oh, Enter the Dragon.
Uh,
Did you see any kung fu movies?
yeah, I've seen Kung Fu movies. Yeah, of course. Is that what you were just talking about?
That's what we ended up on.
I leave him alone for 10 minutes and he's talking about Kung Fu. Danielle is up next and says, just was about to finish the mix of this fun song, the BBN05 EQ plugin came out and I thought, oh, why not give it a test? I used it on snare, electric guitar and bass and it sounds pretty amazing. No, it's buggy though. I don't which one are you on? Which DAW one? No samples were hurt during the mixes. Comments and suggestions are very welcome and appreciated. Fantastic. Here we go. Excited to hear it. Whoa, did you crank this up in volume? Wow. Eric. A little hard of hearing today, are you dear Eric?
Getting old.
Getting old? That's loud. Well, here we go.
Fancy young man walking down the street. Said, there's a woman I love to meet. So, penny for your thoughts. You look like my type. She said, hold out your wallet, boy. You'll do just fine. Moon's coming up now. They're holding hands. Stars are coming up now too, looking like a little romance. Bought wine and roses just for the show. She said, don't rush me, honey. Let's take it slow. They walk onto his pad. He's got quite the place. Says, what about you, babe? What holds your faith? And she turns to him with a big sly grin, saying, I'm no doctor, son, but I rake it in. Now she got one hand around the man, one on the gun. Said, so long, boy. Oh, we've had some fun. You told me so. Said you treat me right. So romance later. Young money tonight. What she wants, she gonna get from you. What she wants, she's gonna get from you. What she wants, she gonna get from you. What she wants, she's gonna get from you. That ain't the first time she'd ever scammed a man. Said, so sorry, honey, but I just can't live so bland. And took all his gold, said thanks for the rose, but I like green. And she hit the road. I'll see her the road. I'll see her the road. I'll see her the road. And she's like, I like green. And she hit the road.
Fantastic. Yes, this is part of the multi-tracks. The way this works is like what we do is we play a song and Eric puts a link up to it, don't you, Eric?
I do, which I am doing right now.
Which he is doing right now. You know, not while during the song was playing, so you know you could.
I did find it while the song was playing, though.
You just didn't put it up.
I swear.
Like I said, you know, it's 27 coming on 72. You know.
We talked about that too.
Oh, Eric, did you? There you go. There's the multi-tracks. See, Anita's on it. She says season 2, right? Why don't we just let Anita do it from now on? Give Anita permission to be able to post it, and that look. Then you can just get back to Tinder and swiping and you know all that.
We talked about during my break.
Yeah. Oh wow.
We talked about a lot of things.
Gee, you covered a lot. Bad joke. Eric's non-existent, you know, social dating life.
Yeah. So kung fu movies.
Kung fu movies. Wow. I wasn't. I was answering an email. I should have been like in the background watching what he was talking about. Yep. That's really good. That's a really, really good mix. And I was grooving, meaning I feel like the relationship between the kick and the bass was pretty perfect on this.
Wallet boy, you'll do just fine. Moon's coming up now. They're holding hands.
So you could argue, and I wouldn't disagree, that a dB on the bass with the tone it has at the moment would actually be rather nice. Because it's this was Dan Rothschild, who you'll know lives behind here, the studio, and his dad was Paul Rothschild, who produced The Doors, and he lives in his dad's old house here in Laurel Canyon. And it's he's a fantastic bass player. I'll tell you a little bit about Dan. He was the first real musician that I hired as a producer in LA. And I still attribute him with the differentiator between being like a local producer and finally getting to work with incredible musicians. He was the first person that really like elevated my productions because I brought in an incredible player in to the fold. So yeah, Dan's absolutely amazing. Huge fan of his. And I think I just want to hear a bit more articulation. I want to hear a bit more volume on him in that. But I do like the more modern kick and snare. It's interesting because, so also, if you haven't mixed this track yet, obviously Eric did find it with Anita's help. You could put it back up again, Eric, would be great. So let me tell you a little bit about that. You see this funny looking thing over there, which has got over there, this funny looking thing? I'm joking. I'm being silly. I'm being facetious. That is a Studer A80 Mark II tape machine, built, I believe, in 1978, something like that. I could be wrong. I could be a year out. It could be 79. But anyway, it's a Studer A80. This track that you are listening to that Danielle mixed, Fancy That, was recorded on that machine in my old studio. So it was recorded on 2-inch tape and then transferred using Clasp, which I don't believe exists anymore, or at least they're not supporting it, as far as I can tell. Clasp, which is the closed loop analog signal path, I think. Basically what you do is you record onto the tape and it comes off the repo head and goes straight back into Pro Tools or whatever, or any DAW, whatever DAW you're using, because it goes through the, of course, the interface. So you get a tape, a immediately transferred in. And it was a really good system. It started to fall apart when you wanted to do overdubs because you had to keep your stacking identical between 1 to 24. That's a 24-track 2-inch. But the A80 is a wonderful, wonderful machine. Songs in the Key of Life was recorded on one of those. I mean, some of the best records ever made were recorded on A80s. They have an incredible sound. They're also a little noisy. And I've told this story a couple of times before, that we had a guy called Nico. We used to call him Norbit because Nico sounds like, such a Greek god, but he was definitely not a Greek god. So he was a great guy. I'm just teasing. But anyway, Nico, he was like 24 at the time. I asked him to output the tracks on the SSL so we could mix it. He outputs it on the SSL, and if you've heard the story before, I apologize. I know Eric's heard it 100 times. And he calls me in the room like, Warren, you have to come in. There's a problem. And I'm like, what is it? And he pressed play on the spacebar on Pro Tools. He's like, do you hear it? And what he heard was, I'm like, Nico, that's called tape hiss. He'd never, ever heard tape hiss before. So he thought that the digital tracks from Pro Tools had a fault in them and there was hiss in there that had been put in it. And I said to explain to him, no. So what's interesting with this track is if you get aggressive on it, compression-wise, you can really bring up the hiss. So we talked about this a few weeks ago when somebody else mixed. This is Andy Palmer, by the way. That's the name of the artist. He's absolutely phenomenal. How many Andy Palmer songs do we have in here?
I think we have 2.
We have 2. I think we've talked about putting more in. Let's do another one. So next week we're going to do the Wilkinsons brothers. We should do Andy next, another Andy track, because they are really spectacular because the band is performing live in the studio. It's recorded onto tape. It sounds fat with a PH. There's a lot of low end that's from the tape. There's some really natural, I don't want to use all the words that people hate, but, tape compression and saturation. The reality is it just has it just sounds great coming off the tape. It's from my old API console with some old BAE Neves as well. And it's got a very unique sound. So I highly recommend if you're new in here to mix those because there's a challenge of mixing stuff from tape, number one. But there's also a beauty of having a rhythm section that played together because you get the groove. When they're in the same room and the bass player's like playing along with the drummer, they're hearing it, yes, but they're also feeling it. They're feeling the air move. You're feeling you get it in the room. So you're grooving and there's just something unique and irreplaceable. It cannot be replaced with any other feeling of actually sitting in a room with the drummer. So all the basics of this, which was electric guitar, scratch vocal, scratch acoustic, of course, but electric guitar, bass and drums were all tracked live together. Now, there was a couple of guitar overdubs, but the essential rhythm track of this song was done, I'm going to use the word, old school. Now, the reason why I think it's funny to say old school is because I haven't stopped making records like that when I'm given the opportunity. When we do the masterclass in October, for those of you coming out for that masterclass, it's going to be the band in the room. It's going to be the players in the room. It's Sean Hurley, it's Victor Andrizzo, guitar player 2BD, because it was going to be David Levita, who's an old friend, but he plays with Faith Hill's husband. I always forget, Toby Keith. And so he's got a show the first day, and he has to fly out too early to play with us. But we're going to have basically an incredible rhythm section there, tracking live with an acoustic guitar vocal with Katie. So that's what's inherent about tracks like this. And it gives you a whole different appreciation. And the reason why I'm waffling on about it so much is because when you come to mix these tracks, you have to think, if you want them to be great, at least, you have to think differently. You have to think from the perspective of like gluing or creating an imagery, a sound image, if you like, of the rhythm section in a room playing together, maintaining it, rather than getting there and getting too carried away with maybe a kick and snare sample and maybe editing the bass. Or if you start getting into those things, it might sonically sound more separated, but often you lose what the inherent groove and feel of it is. Lots of waffling on, I know. But Danielle, I think for me, I want the bass up. I do like what you're doing with the kick. Let's go and listen to that area. So the kick's clean. There's no bass bleeding into it, but the bass could come up.
You'll do just fine. Moon's coming up now. They're holding hands. Stars are coming up now too. Looking like a little romance. Bought wine and roses just for the show. She said, "Don't rush me, honey."
Do we have any photos or just thinking about this because Andy's one of my favorite artists, and we talk about people that never got their due. Is there any photos of Andy and stuff? Is there any like video content? Is there anything? Do people ever see who this artist is? Because he's phenomenal, and the records he's made are just really, really good. But I'm just going to go on a bit of a tangent here because I think sometimes I forget that in this academy we're showcasing some incredible artists. So Andy lives in Colorado. He has, I believe, 2 kids. I don't think they had a third, but he has 2 kids. He went to Boston and trained as a lawyer and actually went to law school. He's adopted. He went to law school in Boston. He met his wife there. They got married, and his wife is an immigration attorney and a wonderful person as well. And they moved back to Colorado so they could practice law. So they go back to Colorado, start practicing law, and she gets pregnant. And they decide that Andy is going to be the stay-at-home dad. So Andy's the stay-at-home dad, and his wife is a full-time practicing lawyer doing immigration law. You know, it's just a really good, he's a really good guy, and he's stupidly talented. And there's some of his stuff is very Tom Waits, and I'm trying to think of a delicate way of saying this. He's not pretending to be that person like Tom does, and I don't mean no disrespect. Tom's from Orange County, lovely guy. Dad's a dentist. You know what I mean? Andy's like the real deal, and there's something really super authentic about what he does. And I love Tom Waits' music, don't get me wrong. But when I hear the two, like some of the stuff that Andy does is absolutely... There's the one about when he was defending, because he practiced law in New York, he was defending somebody. What's the song called? It goes, "I didn't do it. It wasn't me." And it's what the defendant was telling him. I think it's called Rikers Island, or he talks about Rikers. I mean, there's some gritty stuff in there. So, yeah, let's do another song.
Yeah.
Let's add another song. We're going to add another one. This guy is fantastic. Is there a Facebook page or anything we can link or something? Great artist. All right, back to the point.
You'll do just fine.
So yeah, so the kick has really good definition. I like the snap on it. It's a little bit more modern than maybe you could do, but it still works.
Let's take it slow. They walk onto his pad. He's got quite the place. Says, "What about you, babe? What holds your faith?" And she turns to him with a big sly grin, saying, "I'm no doctor, son, but I rake it in." Now she got one hand around the man, one on the gun. Said, "So long, boy. Oh, we've had some fun. You told me so. Said you treat me right. So Your money tonight. What you want, you gonna get from you.
Now, you got to know what I was doing there on the production. I went full-blown Meters New Orleans funk, and I really liked the way Dan, if you can just bring up the bass here, that's total New Orleans. Have a listen to this.
So romance later. Your money tonight. What you want, you gonna get from you. What you want, she's gonna get from you. What you want, she gonna get from you. What you want, she's gonna get from you. That ain't the first time she'd ever scammed a man. So sorry.
Oh, I love that section. So a bit more bass on there. Now, I think that's Victor Indrizzo, whose favourite drummers are Zigaboo from the Meters. Stevie Wonder, he's a huge fan of Stevie Wonder's drumming, and he's a huge fan of Ringo Starr. All groove and feel players, all song drummers, not, you know what I mean? Not, and Victor's a technician, but he's a groove meister, insane drummer. I want to listen to it one more. Great work, Danielle. Just give us a bit more bass.
So romance later. Your money tonight. What you want, you gonna get from you. What you want, she's gonna get from you. What you want, she's gonna get from you. What you want, she's gonna get from you. That ain't the first time she'd ever
The keyboard player is Zach Ray. That's Z or Z for those of you in America. Z-A-C R-A-E. Zach Ray, who I believe is in Postal Service and was played with Fiona Apple's, recording on a bunch of her records. And phenomenal keyboard player. This was pretty much a dream lineup of musicians in a room playing together. I think we did the clavinet is live, the Hohner clavinet's live, the bass is live, the electric guitar, at least the bulk of it, the rhythm guitar, the bass and the drums are all live, and it's all done on tape. So I highly, highly, highly recommend going to do it, and we will do another song. I think we did a 5-song EP, didn't we? I think it was 5 songs originally. Yeah, the album was called Hazard of the Die. Oh, fancy that was a hidden track. That's crazy. Yeah, ridiculously talented guy. 8 songs. There's a song called Moya, which is just really, really good. Yeah, if you can put a Spotify link up there to that album, Eric, The Hazard of the Die. Okay. Let's give it some play. Let's listen to this guy. He's ridiculously talented. Danielle, really love your mix. Thank you ever so much for doing this. Rebalance the bass and give us a bit more funkiness on the bass. Let's have a listen to one more section.
What you want, she gonna get from you. What you want, she's gonna get from you. That ain't the first time she'd ever scammed a man. So sorry, honey, but I just can't live so bland. Took all his gold, said thanks for the rose, but I like green. She hit the road. I'll see her the road.
Yep. I think once the bass is up, I think your panning is really good. I think the decisions are great. I think the vocal sits in the track in a really, really super musical way. It's a great mix. And Danielle, maybe mastering would add just like a tiny bit more, 40 to 60 on the kick, just a tiny bit. Daniel, the biggest thing is thank you ever so much for bringing that track out so we can discuss it, and just really exciting. Thank you ever so much. Great. I love having a little bit of a tangent and talking about great artists. I'm going to put his link up to his site again. There you go. Chestnut Mountain Studio. Please leave feedback. This was me drumming, so it might be good, might be bad. Thanks to all. Okay. Oh, you replayed on this track. Great. Our banjo version. Banjovi.
Shot through the heart, and you're to blame. You give love a bad name. Angel smile is what you sell. Promise me heaven, but put me through hell. Chains of love got a hold on me. When passion's a prison, you can't break free. Ooh, she's a loaded gun. Ooh, nowhere to run. No one can save me. The damage is done. Shot through the heart, and you're to blame. You give love a bad name. I play my part, and you play your game, darling. You give love a bad name. Yeah, you give love a bad name. You paint your smile on your lips, blood red nails on your fingertips. Schoolboy's dream, you act so shy. Your very first kiss was your first kiss goodbye. Ooh, she's a loaded gun. Ooh, nowhere to run. No one can save me. The damage is done. Shot through the heart, and you're to blame. You give love a bad name. I play my part, and you play your game, darling. You give love a bad name. Yeah, you give love. Shot through the heart, and you're to blame. You give love a bad name. I play my part, and you play your game, darling. You give love a bad name. Shot through the heart, and you're to blame. You give love a bad name. I play my part, and you play your game, darling. You give love a bad name. Oh, 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 oh,
So, I love it. I love your new drums. Before we talk about the song, before we talk about the production and stuff like that, I love the new drums. I love the boom, boom, the big, huge, thumpy, like sustained kick is just really great. I love it. Absolutely love it. And thanks for doing what you did to my solo. There's a DI in there. And all I did was just go, I mean, you can see how silly my guitar solo is. but it's supposed to be like over the top and just ridiculous, and that's what we did. And of course the banjo solo. The banjo was played by Phil. I think originally he did the drums, I did the bass and the guitars, and he did the vocals, and I did some backgrounds. But that's him singing lead vocal. I really love it. I love the drum sound. I'm going to go back to here. I think really on that section there, push up the banjo solo. You know what I mean?
Shot through the
Every time I hear that deliberately silly solo, I really like it. Let's just keep listening.
heart, and you're to blame. You give love a bad name. I play my part, and you play your game, darling. You give love a bad name. Shot through the heart, and you're to blame.
Yeah, I like the over-the-top kind of splatty big drums. It's like, look, it's called Ban Jovi, like banjo, obviously. It's supposed to be funny. My wife got really annoyed with me because we were doing this song at like 2 o'clock in the morning because we would work all day. We were down at Harmony, I think, when we did this. And we'd work till like 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And then Phil would be like, hey, you want to do a Ban Jovi cover? And I was like, heck yeah. And we would bang out these songs in like an hour and a half. Obviously, the violin is a sample, you know, played on like a little mini USB keyboard. And are the drums fake on this? I think they are. Yeah, everything was just kind of put together and fake. The only thing that's real, of course, is the vocals, bass, electric guitar, and banjo. Everything else is probably just manipulated. So it's fun, it's silly, it's irreverent, and I think Chestnut Mountain Studio, you captured it really, really well. I think it'd be pointless to have any major critiques on this because I think it's part of the humor that you've got these big Robert Palmer drums, you know?
Through the heart, and you're to blame. You give love a bad.
I mean, that gating on the kick.
Through the heart, and you're to blame. You give love a bad name. I play my part, and you play.
Yeah, the big kind of gated snare as well. It's great. It's perfect.
I play my part, and you play your game, darling. You give love a bad name. Shot through the heart.
So I'll give you one little piece of information as we're about to move on. So I was working at Capitol at the time, Records, and my boss and an old friend of mine heard this stuff. I think we did 3 or 4 songs, and was like, we need to put this out as an album. So we got really super excited. So he went to Bon Jovi and asked them if they would get behind and help support it, and thought it was funny and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And they didn't want anything to do with it whatsoever. So they didn't see the funny side of doing cheesy country versions of tongue-in-cheek versions of their songs. So we never did the album, unfortunately. But yeah, I like the 80s sounding drums. I think it makes sense. Maybe we should do it again. We'll do more. Yeah, you know. But it was going to come out on Capitol, and we were just going to finish the whole album. It would have been great. I mean, we probably would have got paid like, you know, $5,000. It wasn't like a big record deal. They were just going to like do it for humorous reasons and put it out. You know, I mean, they don't need to help a couple of dudes, you know, in Los Angeles to do a record, so it's fine. I'm not upset. I mean, we did it for fun, literally at midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and that's how we always did it. Because we were always working, you know. Phil being a multi-instrumentalist as well meant we could just kind of play off instruments, and he's a better drummer than I am. I'm not a good drummer at all. So he'd just go in. What we do often is work out the parts in MIDI, you know, You know, just work them all out, work out what the fills were in about 5 minutes. Don't get me wrong. We didn't analyze it overly. And then we'd play it down once, listen to it, and then he'd go in and play it. Anyway, great work. Thank you, Chestnut Mountain Studio, for doing that. Christopher Thompson is up next. This has been a fun week. Christopher says, thanks to Mr. Hewitt, Mark Daniel Nelson, and Todd Kessler for the multi-tracks for this great song. It's a pleasure to mix. I mixed this in the box using UAD Luna and used a Blackbird Kit BB N105 Neve plugin on drums, guitars, and vocals with the UAD Neve summing on the buses. Any feedback or insight is always appreciated. Wonderful. Here we go. Let's have a listen.
Jagged metronome of typewriter keys. A simple thought brings you to me, and I'm thankful every day. I'm so glad I found you the old-fashioned way. In a time when we want it all, everything so fast. Read a text, no time to call. To slow down, oh, I pray. I'm so glad I found you the old-fashioned way. I'll write to you with ink from a pen. Feel the weight as the words sink in. My mind moves too fast for my hand. I need to tell you this while I still can. It was so dark that a warm summer night. I much prefer it to the bright blue light. And I feel the need to say, I'm so glad I found you the old-fashioned way. I'll write to you with ink from a pen. Feel the weight as the words sink in. My mind moves too fast for my hand. I need to tell you this while I still can. Jagged metronome of typewriter keys. Another page done, my soul at ease, and I'm thankful every day. I'm so glad I found you the old-fashioned way. I'm so glad I found you the old-fashioned way. I'm so glad I found you the old-fashioned way.
Oh, it's really super. That's really, really beautiful. Really, really beautiful. I just want to listen to one little piece here. Give me a minute.
And I'm thankful every day. I'm so glad I found you the old-fashioned way. In a time when we
I thought that was a really bold move. That's the reason why I'm highlighting it. I felt like bringing that down and then entering so dramatically with the bass is pretty dramatic, isn't it? It's bold. Have a listen again.
I'm so glad I found you the old-fashioned way. In a time when we want it all, everything so fast. Read a text, no time to call. To slow down, oh, I pray.
Now I want to go to near the end of the sort of bigger part of the song.
My mind moves too fast for my head. I need to tell you that
This is an interesting case. This reminds me of conversations, plural, I've had with Jack Douglas and Shelley Yakus. Now, there's an accepted belief in modern music, at least, now that we have extended low end that can be reproduced, even on earbuds now, you know. Oh, I was going to say, do I bring it in? I brought it in. I wanted to say this, talking of earbuds, I still on a daily, still using those same earbuds. The ones I tried out about 6 months ago. I use them every day, and they still work. And I think they were like $89 or something, weren't they? I just want to say that because I use them every day and every night. They're in the car. I left them in the car. And they sound better than my wife's AirPods. They seem to hold charge longer, and they're cheaper. And what I like about them is I can just drop the container on the thing. And they don't sound like the best earbuds ever made. Don't get me wrong. They don't sound like $10,000 earbuds. I've heard $3,500 earbuds, and it's like ridiculous how good they are. But for like $90 or $100, whatever they were, they're amazing. Anyway, so the conversation I had with Jack, I've had multiple ones with Jack and Shelley, were about shelving and choices between kick and bass guitar. In the day when everything was transferred to eventually be heard in vinyl, they would make conscious decisions about what the lowest thing in the mix was going to be. These days, we don't think that way, or rarely. Unless we're doing like hip-hop or EDM, we don't have our kick drum higher than our bass. It's always below. We always want the doom. We want that big, low kick. Like we just heard in You Give Love a Bad Name. That was that big, massive, almost gated, kind of huge drum sound, kick drum sound. And here, it's a little bit more click, click, just a little bit more old school, 70s sounding, and the bass boom, is more encompassing. So I'm listening to it thinking to myself, and that's the reason why I went to the end, like going here.
time when we want it all. Everything so
I can't remember what Mark is using as earbuds off the top of my head, but needless to say, they're not cheap. They're very expensive. I mean, I'm sure they're amazing, but what I'm talking about is a general purpose, better sounding than Apple at cheap, half the price, I think. And don't get me wrong, I like Apple products. I've got tons of them. We're talking on one now. I got an Air over here, a MacBook Pro over here, an iPhone. I'm on an Apple computer. He's got an Apple. I mean, it's ridiculous. We should have bought stocks and shares in them 20 years ago. Both Eric and I'd be retiring, although he would have only been 7. I'd have been 8. Funny joke. You know I was 9. All right, so anyway, the reality is like, this is working really, really well. So I wanted to go back and re-listen and think to myself, do I want the kick drum to always not be the lowest thing? So let's have a listen, because I really like that entrance note on the bass. I know I pointed out earlier, but it's beautiful. It's massive. gorgeous. Boom. So let's go in and, we got 60 hertz, see what's going on. So if you hear that second dum dum, that note there, it's about the same amount of 60 hertz in this. We've got about the same amount of 60 hertz in the bass that we do in the kick. So they're pretty equal. Now, you're probably thinking, well, Warren, don't you normally like to just kind of start rolling off the 60? I do. Normally, I would say to you, Christopher, I would say, you know what, Christopher, I think you need to just kind of roll off, not remove, but just roll off a bit of 60, 50, and 40, just to let a little bit of definition be there on the kick. In this case, I am going to say, no, don't do that. Keep it as it is. Because what's interesting about what Christopher's done, he's got that knocking sound, that sound on the kick. Listen.
I'm too cold.
Hear it?
I'm too cold.
Cluck, cluck.
I'm too cold to slow down. Oh, I pray. I'm so glad.
So both the low end of the bass guitar and the low end of the kick drum are pretty equal down there. Maybe just favoring by a dB the kick drum, which I think is also smart, but essentially pretty even down there. But that knocking that you're hearing on the kick helps differentiate. So it gives it enough personality. And this is just a really good mixing thing to think about. It gives it enough personality that it reinforces the low end that you hear. So at no point in this song do I think to myself, oh, the bass is smothering the kick. So it's an interesting psychological thing because you've got personality, charisma, character of a kick drum with enough low end to fill it in down there, which is also being doubled up by the bass. But in this instance, it's satisfying to hear the bass be boom, rather than just nicely sculpted and out of the way of the kick enough. It's in there just kind of making you feel really, I don't know, really happy. I mean, it's beautiful. Listen to it again.
In a time when we want it all, everything's so fast. Read a text, no time to call. To slow down, oh, I pray. I'm so glad I found you the old-fashioned way. I'll write to you with ink from a pen.
It's really smart. This is really good mixing. Really nice, Christopher. I think the vocals are quite hyped in the mids. The 2 to 3 kind of a little bit. I also like them.
And I'm thankful every day. I'm so glad I found you the old-fashioned way. In a time when we want it all, everything's so fast. Read a text, no time to call.
It's a really good lesson. So what Christopher's done here, and is good for all of us to work on, it's a little bit like I was talking about with the Andy Palmer song, and we're going to obviously put up another Andy Palmer song in a couple of weeks, is just finding a place where you can modernize something but also keep the integrity of the performances. And when you've got really good musicians playing together, and it can be achieved by overdubbing, don't get me wrong. A great musician can get back and feel like they're in the room. That's when you know you're working with incredible players, when they can just slot in there and allow the song to breathe and maybe play a little bit on top because it's more exciting, or lay back just to kind of make the groove feel good. That is what great musicians do, and that is what great producers do to capture. They understand when something is working. In this instance, I think Christopher's mix is pretty phenomenal. There's a little bit of a hype on the vocal, a little bit, but I like it. It helps it stick out. It's like this. I like the choice of the equality in the low end between the kick and the bass guitar, because it means every time the bass plays, it helps the mood. If I had completely gone in there and sculpted that bass absolutely perfectly and removed any excessive 50, 40, 30, taken it out or taken it down dramatically, then that satisfying boom when it comes in wouldn't be there. It would just be like, oh, the bass is playing. So this is the difference between the technical and the creative, but also, more importantly, it is showing where the creative and the technical actually meet. Sounds like a contradictory statement, doesn't it? The reason why I'm saying it's the difference is because the creative should always win. Like, you are making a choice and going, okay, I want the low end on the bass to be really expansive and huge. Not so huge it blows up my speakers, but huge enough that it creates a mood when it comes in, number one. So there's the creative trumping the technical. But the reason why they work together is you need to technically understand how to get that to happen. And what Christopher has done is he hasn't removed all the low end off the kick and made a decision, to have the low end be all of the bass. And by preserving the knocking sound of the kick, he's able to keep the kick playing consistently. It's a really smart mix. Very, very smart mix. We can all learn from this kind of stuff. Love it. Absolutely love it. And the rest of it is pure conjecture and theorizing, but in the reality, that is what's made this really good. Great work, Christopher. Please, if you can share your settings on the kick and the bass, the EQ, compression, etc. you did on that, I think that would be amazing. Is Christopher here? Yoni, you're up next by the looks of it. Is Paolo Yoni? Or did you just do it in the wrong order? Oh, you did it in the wrong order. It's fine. Oh, I see Yoni, but there's no comment. Okay, so we're going to listen to you. Here we go.
Head for the future, no more rusting here with the lights that
Wonderful work, Yoni. So, underlying things I absolutely love. Drum sound. Love it. I love you emphasizing the room mics. And I think if anybody's mixed this song yet, or let's do it, rephrase it. If anybody hasn't mixed this song yet, mix it. It is really, really complex. Did we end up getting this mixed by Ken Sluter as well?
Yes, it's City Lights, right? So it's one of the courses that we have.
And it's inside here with Ken Sluter's mix.
Let me double check just to make sure.
I don't know. Anyway, or did I do a breakdown of me doing it? But anyway, to cut a long story short, this is a pain in the proverbial butt to mix. It is an incredibly complex song when it comes to the arrangement. David was like overdub-tastic. He couldn't stop wanting to do overdubs. It was really, really like, we've got enough. And which is interesting because I said to him, do a stripped down song. So we did the Where the Wind Blows. Of course, that's the biggest song on that album. And then he went off on his own and did a whole album of just stripped down songs, which of course was his most successful stuff. That's what happens when you work with artists. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I really, really love what Yoni's done here because Yoni's made a decision. There's things can be improved, don't get me wrong, but made a decision that works. And the decision is, how am I going to figure out all of this stuff that's going on in the chorus? Now, forget the first verse. We have some stuff to talk about that in a second. But let's go here.
I'm not gonna follow. Take off, show me the stars. I'm ready to leave. I'm ready to leave the city of Flatbroke. Show me the road. Good life, good life, good life. Take off, show me the stars. Away from the lights, away from the lights in the city.
So, good decision. So I like that, Yoni. Go for the roomy drum sound. I think Anita was pointing out the H3000 kind of doubling effect and maybe the double as well. I can't recall if there's a double. Those should come down. They don't need to be quite so loud. But what I like about you emphasizing the rooms is it means you can reduce the amount of overdubs because it now becomes about the energy of the drums. It reminds me of the classic period, of course, Hugh Padgham. And you start thinking about XTC with Steve Lillywhite and Hugh Padgham and Hugh on his own. And then, of course, Peter Gabriel with Hugh and Steve. And then Hugh on his own. And you just think about, with all those bands, how they like those great, great room tones on the drums. And when you did that and you wanted to hear the ambience of the kit, you didn't do as many overdubs because you wanted the big drum. So you had the big drum sound and then suddenly you're like, I'm going to put down just a really cool guitar part and then a second one. So that's what I like about Yoni's decision-making process is it means that the 450,000 overdubs, I'm exaggerating, but it felt like that at times. The overdubs don't have to all be heard at all times and don't have to be there at all times. So I think that is super, super smart. So I like what's going on there with that. The other thing is get the vocal double down, get the vocal to be purer there. But in this first verse, the vocal's just far too low. Bring the vocal up here. I love that drum sound there. So the vocal's leaning left, put it back in the center. I like some of the decision-making process because you're making it sound like I'm singing lights. I like that. I like that sort of idea of just kind of nonchalance, just kind of like almost demure, kind of like, and then wheels up here for the future. You know what I mean? It really exaggerates those emotions. So I like it. I'm not sure. I think the only way a panning like that would work is if you keep the big drums, is if you go acoustic to the right to balance it out. I think maybe if you want to keep this idea you're doing, just narrow the vocal so it's closer to the middle and then narrow an acoustic so it's closer to the middle. And then just make it feel like David playing acoustic or David playing piano. Narrow the stereo field of the piano So you got the big drums, but then have the vocal and the piano just kind of narrowed around the vocal, so that when the wheels up comes in, when this part comes in,
Take off, show me the stars.
stats, I got the wrong lyric, but you know what I mean. Take off, show me the stars.
Take off, show me the stars. I'm ready.
So when that comes in, it exaggerates it. And you are doing that. What you're doing at the moment is great. You've got this kind of subdued first verse and then it's explosive chorus. I just think more of it, but I do think the vocal needs to be a little bit louder, but I like the nonchalance. I like the kind of like whatever kind of thing because it exaggerates the chorus thing. But narrow the vocal to the center, probably keep it in the center. Narrow the piano so it's big drums, singer, piano, and then explosive chorus. I think you've got a lot of work ideas still to do, but I think your direction is fantastic, and I particularly love this part. I love that when I heard that good life. It's really, I like it a lot. Really creative. So creative ideas. Do more of this, Yanni. Now that you're sort of honing in on this idea of the kind of understatement, but with the big driving drums, just embrace it. Embrace the idea even more. Like exaggerated sections, simplify the vocal sound in the choruses so it's not that H3000, like Anita was pointing out, doubled vocal sound. A little bit more just kind of da, da, you know, like the singer coming down the middle. You could even probably put on like 10% like drive on it, just a little bit. Drive that only notices in solo. That's the drive I like in this kind of situation. You solo the vocal and you're like, oh, there's a bit of saturation on there. You put it in the mix, you're like, you don't know it's there, but it adds energy, Yanni, great mix. I mean, there's stuff to improve, but your direction and your thinking is really smart. And just to reiterate, what it is about that song is the overdubs are insane. So what Yanni's done by creating and leaning on the drum sound like that is giving him, sorry, I don't know Yanni's male or female, I'm sorry, giving them the opportunity, to think about it in a different way. And really, really smart. Thank you, Yanni. I really appreciate it. Last but no means least, is Paolo. Hey, Paolo. And Paolo says, I first heard this song in a recent Feedback Friday. I love it. The vocal performance is just phenomenal. I like the arrangement with the heavy guitars and the synths. I had to spend some time on finding the right pockets for synth, and I managed to get a good compromise. For lead vocal, I alternate the two given reverb tracks between verse and chorus. I use the Echoplex tracks for tonal variation in the pre-chorus. In the finale, a decapitator pushes more distortion. I really like, this is all music to my ears, I like these ideas. I really like the balance between guitars and keys where I have it. In the last section, the guitars take over. They are bigger and fatter. Excellent. All right, I'm excited. I like thinking. Clinton. All right, thanks, Clinton. I appreciate it. Yanni's a great name, though. I just don't want to make any assumptions. Fantastic. Oh, Love Me, I'm Rich. I didn't even know what song it was, Paolo, but here it is. Excited to hear. Oh, yeah.
You know he's in touch with his feminine side, leaving a trail of deception and lie. Sure, he's myopic, but he's fun and psychotic. Love me, I'm rich, he said. Love me, I'm rich, he said. Love me, I'm rich. Such a perfect life out there in the sun. Such a perfect life, I hope you're having fun. Settled He might be myopic, but he's fun and psychotic. Love me, I'm rich, he said. Love me, I'm rich, he said. Love me, I'm rich. Such a perfect life out there in the sun. He's got your perfect life. I hope you're having fun. Built your perfect life, too close to the sun. Takes the perfect weight, watch you come undone. Such a perfect life. Such a perfect life. Such a perfect life. Such a perfect life. Let me out rich. 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 Let me out Let me out rich. Let me out Let me out
Absolutely amazing. Yeah, Paolo, you really did nail this. So, I agree. I think the impact of the choruses is absolutely huge. I love everything you did. I like the idea of the vocal being in the track like you have it. I just think it's too far in the track. I think that just bring it up a little bit, just a little bit, and you can add a little bit more brightness and saturation to it at the end there. She's definitely ripping her heart out. Let me out, Rich. But you know, it just needs a little bit more grit to it there, just a tiny bit more saturation on there, and a tiny bit more brightness. It's just a little bit more painful. You know what I mean? Just a tad more painful. So it's like, Rich. You know what I mean? It's an angry song. The song, I wrote it about an ex-girlfriend who, sorry, I think I've told you this story before, who some rock star was chasing after when we were still together and would ring. And he rang once, rang the house to speak to her. And and started telling me about his Cadillac. I got a Cadillac and it's got like a Ferrari engine in it. And I'm just like, why are you telling me this? It was all sort of really like, I'm better than you. I'm better than you. I'm more successful than you. And that's what basically what he was telling me. This is like, wow, like, when was this? I just moved to LA. Maybe I was here 2 years. For like 98, 99. That was when it happened. And yeah, so goodness, a long ass time ago when I was basically closer to this guy's age. Jesus, Mary and Joseph, long time ago. And so that's the whole thing, you know. The Love Me, I'm Rich. You know what I mean? You know, have anybody ever had that kind of experience where somebody's just trying to put you down and be like, it was weird. We broke up, and then of course, you know, a month later, I hear she's dating him. She married him. They have a kid. Good for her. But it was a great source of song writing. I think you nailed it. You know, I think you nailed it. I hear the explosion down there. It's huge. For those of you that are new, go to this multi-track, mix it. It's a lot of fun. I think I've done my own version of it with me singing on it. And there is a version somewhere with Christopher Hall singing it, you know, from Stabbing Westward. Because that's originally who I did this with. I did this song with Christopher of Stabbing Westward, and we had a band called The Dreaming, which Shaylee, you might know, they play around town. I think it's like 3 members of Stabbing Westward now. Definitely 2. A couple. One of the guitar. After I left, a new guitarist came in, and he left and joined Black Veil Brides. Wow, we're talking 20. No, when did I do this? I wrote this song 20 years ago, but I recorded it maybe 15 years ago with The Dreaming. I don't remember now. It's a long time ago. Anyway, and I recorded it with Brian Colstrom, you know, God rest his soul. So some real history in here of lots of great people. For those of you who don't know, Brian Colstrom was the engineer for Dave Jordan and engineered Dirt by Alice in Chains. So he and I worked on this song together, the original version of it. But this is all tracked by me. This wasn't done with Brian, but the original demo of it was done with Brian. Okay, I love this. I think the low end is pretty massive. The only thing with the explosion here on this last chorus is it just takes away from the downbeat.
Such a perfect love. Let me outrage. Let me outrage. Let me. Such a perfect love.
Maybe what it is like add some air, ching ching, ching ching. Just pull down the stuff in between. Not, you don't have to go and like mute it. I don't want it. Doesn't. I wouldn't do, you know. So basically what you could do is maybe this. And this is just me playing around. You should do it much better than what I'm doing. This is just me fooling around, but this is what you would do on instruments. So you can't do it on everything because it's too dramatic. But you have to do it on elements just like ching ching, ching ching. This is not going to work like this. You can't do it on a master bus, but you get what I'm saying. See what I did? So I hit that downbeat like a couple of dB up. You just got to pull down. I'm trying to subtly do it like a little bit less here. Okay. So get in there and do some automation on elements to create that chun chun. So it's like chun chun, chun chun, down. Just so that last chorus is like exploding out of there. You've got all of the elements in here. Just go in there and do some additional subtle automation. pull things down so you've got less of a sustain on those chung 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 chung, so that when the downbeat comes in, it's like, wow, where did that come from? And just blows your head off. So do that, and then just give me just a little tiny bit more grit on her vocal, just a tiny bit more, tiny bit brighter, ever so slightly. And maybe by the saturation and the brightness, you won't need to turn it up, because you do those two things first. Don't go to volume first, because higher mid saturated sounds are going to sound louder in the mix. That might be all you need to do. Otherwise, absolutely fantastic mix. Paolo, I really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. This has been a lot of fun. Download the multitracks, mix them. This has been one of your better choices, Eric, I might say.
Really?
Yeah, because sometimes we have like 5 gallery songs.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I love the gallery, don't get me wrong, but I like it. I like the eclecticness of this. But at the same time, when we do a new song, obviously it's good when everybody's mixing the same song, because then we learn off each other. But for this week, where we don't have the only new multi-tracks we've done over the last couple of weeks have been on Produce Like a Pro. So they've been some of the demo stuff when we're with Steve, for instance. And I haven't heard those in here, but let's do Landon Wilkinson's and Riley Wilkinson's track next week, and we'll live mix it.
And then we'll do Andy Palmer after.
And then we'll do Andy Palmer after that, another Andy Palmer song. So we'll get a lot going on. And I'll mix the Andy Palmer live as well. That way I think we can get a little bit more into mixing in the box for everybody here, because some of the ones we've done are fantastic, but I'll do another hybrid one, but it's a little unfair to be like, well, I'm just going to use my SSL. And I'm going to hear and that's good. And I know you guys and girls appreciate the variation in the hybrid equipment, but at the same time, it's pretty hard to repeat, 4 Pultecs that I've got sitting over there, and then 2 on my master bus, mastering Pultecs with massive headroom, and then a pair of over there, and then you know what I mean. It's not easy to repeat. You all rock. Thank you ever so much. What a wonderful one. 2 hours and 45 minutes. We've been going. Even despite Eric's joke. Hi-fi, what was it? Wave.
They just wave. WAV wave, though. It's audio.
I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. What can I say? All right, you all rock. Have a marvelous time recording, mixing, and see you on Wednesday. So long, farewell.